Hello, we're back with some bolderer predictions for the upcoming May Basho. Salt throw!
Hagaki-Yoi! Throw the salt, get in the ring. Welcome to the Dohyo!
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Dohyo here on Mr. J-Wag's channel, where the topic is always sumo. Of course, it is that time again for the Natsu Basho. We're having one this year. I'm very excited about that, but we got some things to talk about before we get to my bolder predictions. First, it's time for Hagaki-Yoi. Hagaki-Yoi is, of course, the viewer mail segment where I take questions from you, the people. Questions about me, questions about sumo, questions about what I think about sumo. In this episode, our question comes from longtime viewer Andrew Thetford, who asks, what is the most visually pleasing Kimarite to you? Of course, that means the finishing move. Now, I have, of course, some opinions about this. My most visually pleasing sort of offensive move, or what they call like the ages, are the throws. You see a lot of the guys who are Mongolian or the guys who have a lot of judo training tend to like do those side arm throws. The reason I like them is because they take place in sort of 3 dimensions as opposed to a lot of sumo which takes place on sort of a very 2-dimensional plane. I like it when the 2 wrestlers create sort of an interesting 3D sculpture in the Kimarite. So I guess like my favorites would be like the Kakenage, which is the hooking inner thigh throw, and the Yaguranage, which is I think just called a thigh throw. But I will be putting samples of these in the links below. I'll be putting the Sumopedia descriptions of all these Kimarite below. When it comes to defense, I like what they call the Zoris, or the backward drops. Now, the only guy I see who regularly pulls these off is Ura, but if you'll notice in the theme song, we had one of his Zoris in there. I think that one's called the Tasuki-zori, and he's also had a very cool one last year called the Izori, but those tend to be a little more defensive, and they tend to a little bit more reactive sumo. I think the most visually interesting dominating sumo isn't necessarily something where you have the other guy flying off the ring. Visually, the most dominating for me is called, I think, the Saba-Ori. It's just where you force the other guy down to his knees, and I think that just looks really badass, if not 3-dimensionally interesting. So Andrew, you have gotten your question on Hagaki-Yoi. We are shouting you out. Curtis, our last winner, picked the flannel, the lovely green one. So you get to hashtag pick the flannel, and you get the Mr. J-Wag song of your choice. Just one of the fun songs here on the Dohyo. Pick it. I'll give it to you. And if you would like to participate in our next Hagaki-Yoi, please leave me some questions in the comments. Of course, we had some very sad news in the sumo world recently. Hibikiryu, the lower division wrestler who suffered a very traumatic spinal injury, passed away recently. And of course, we send out love and condolences to his family, his stable, and all of his fans. Quick sidebar. Okay, we have talked a lot about injury on the show, done 2 whole episodes on it. So I don't really have a whole lot to add to this specific situation. Just to say, I was shocked that in a sport based on blunt force trauma, there was no plan for someone suffering a trauma-based injury that paralyzed someone. I just think that if you are going to be a contact-based sport, you have to have the proper medical people on call and immediately available. I don't know how much that costs, but we managed to have a trauma team at every single NFL game in the US, and that's 16 different locations. There's only one location for sumo. You can have a doctor and a trauma team on site. It comes down to this. There needs to be a plan in place to protect these wrestlers. When I work in theater, we have a plan in case there's a fire. We have a plan in case there's a medical emergency. We have plans for active shooters, and thankfully we've never had to go through that. But there is a specific plan for each one of these contingencies. For the most obvious contingency for the health of your rikishi, please, 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 next time, there needs to be a plan. Quick sidebar. And another quick sumo announcement. I know I've been promising some Shadow of Hakuho episodes coming up. We have had a bit of audio trouble, so those of you who have been praising the improved audio on the show, it's slightly more complicated. So I'm going to be reshooting part of those and getting those out to you as soon as I can. I also have some very good reasons why I have been busy for the past few weeks, and I will be dropping an update on the channel, letting you all know what is coming up for Mr. J-Wags. Okay, the predictions this time I think are going to be a little bit easier because we can start from the top knowing that no Yokozuna are going to be in this tournament. So my first bold prediction is going to be all 8 remaining members of the Sanyaku go all 15 days. And my bolder prediction, they all finish Kachikoshi. All of them get 8 wins or more. I think we are at a place in sumo where we have sort of stratified the Banzuke into sort of thirds, and the guys who are at the top are going to sort of hang out at the top for a while. The middle guys and the bottom guys, we may have a few pop-ups here and there, but I think for the rest of the year, we have a lot of people sort of at their true talent level. Now, one of the guys I think who could really push through this tournament and enter that top level of sumo, Wakataka Kage. He's at Maegashira 1 East. He would have made the Sanyaku had anyone dropped out of it. But I think that he's going to get not only a Kachikoshi this tournament, but my bolder prediction, he's going to force an extra Komasubi slot for the July Basho. And the sumo three-way parlay is not going to be as positive as it sometimes can be. I have a feeling that these 3 guys are a little overranked and or are due for a rough tournament. Maegashira 1, Hokuto-Fuji. He's sort of fallen into this every other tournament he does pretty well, and this seems to be one where he's going to be due for a very high-energy, low-win tournament. Maegashira 3, Aoyama, had an amazing tournament. He gets one of those a year, and now I think he's had one for the year, and I think this one's not going to be so good. I think he's going to get pretty darn punished by the Sanyaku and going to end up in lower Maegashira next tournament. And Maegashira number 2, Tobizaru. I would love to be wrong about this one, but I just don't see Tobizaru getting 8 wins at the very top of the Maegashira ranks. Now, I think for the rest of the year in sumo, we're not going to have any more huge surprises and no sort of Tokashoryu level surprises that we had last year. And I think in some ways, sumo has settled into a nice little groove. So I would like to make a few non-bold predictions. We'll do them like lightning round style. I think that the Natsu Basho this year will definitely be better than Natsu Basho last year. Wasn't one last year. Although Takayasu and Daisho are technically on Ozeki runs, I don't think either of them is going to make Ozeki after this tournament. Like I said, it would take at least 14 wins for either of them to really be in the conversation for that, and neither of them have ever done that. Ichinojo, between 7 and 9 wins. Got a strong feeling about this one. Hoshoryu's sumo will provoke at least 3 angry uncle tweets. And finally, my most specific non-bold prediction. Asanoyama is going to lose 1 of his first 3 matches, 2 of his final 3 matches. He will get 10 plus wins, but will lose to Terunofuji. Non-bold predictions. Now we're getting into sort of the nitty-gritty of the predictions. I think the predictions for the rest of the year, I think, are going to be largely Ozeki-based, just because I think the rest of the year is going to be sort of proving who's going to be able to make Ozeki, and if any of the current Ozeki are going to be able to get their rope this year. So I have my bold prediction. Terunofuji is going to get Kachikoshi and stay all 15 days, but is not going to be in contention on day 15. Although COVID is probably keeping a bit of a damper still on things in Japan, he's in a big stable. This is a huge, huge deal. I'd be thinking he's probably not going to have as much focus as he will in maybe a couple tournaments. I mentioned this with Hokuto-Fuji, but Shodai has also fallen into this sort of every other tournament he does well. Well, this time it's his turn to do well, so I predict Shodai is going to get 11 plus wins. Bolder, he walks away with the Jun Yusho. Alright, now I think a few of you know where this is going, so stay with me, but I don't think there are very many wrestlers who can pull out a 13-2 anymore right now. And I think anyone who pulls out a 13-2 is going to be either the champion or playoff for the champion. And one of those guys who I think can pull it off is Taka Keisho. So I think it's going to be a Taka Keisho Yusho 13-2. He came back from injury last tournament. He looked much better than I thought. If a little bit of luck goes his way, I could easily see him being able to pull off 13 wins. When you look at it, we really only have, I think, 3 wrestlers who've been able to pull off 13 wins facing a full Sanyaku slate. And 3 of them are Ozeki right now. So, Taka Keisho's youngest. He appears to be Genki going into it. Let's go Taka Keisho. Fire hydrant love. This is also going to be a really, really fun tournament down in Juryo. Enho and Ura are ranked 1 and 2. I'm very, very excited about this. And hopefully next tournament, both of them and Kota Shoho, after a strong resurgence, will be coming back to the Makuuchi division. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Dohyo. Like I said, we'll be coming out with those Shadow of Hakuho episodes very soon. We will be continuing the quick strikes during the Basho, so if you don't want to miss any of those, please hit the subscribe button so you get all of the amazing Dohyo action. Everyone stay strong, stay safe, stay healthy, and I will see you next time on the Dohyo.